sort of make assessments about what's available and what we can provide. So we'll have more information soon on that. We'll keep the public informed. It may be that as we come back up with rail services, it may be a reduced timetable, but we'll certainly let people know. Most buses are out across South East Queensland. Check with your bus operator. It's very difficult for drivers to safely get to depots due to how many roads are cut, and of course a lot of the routes are affected by the inability of the buses to get through. On the brighter side, the trams are still running on the Gold Coast, and I understand the ferries are still operating safely at the southern Moreton Bay Islands. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to water dam.
Good morning. As it stands, the current level of the South East Queensland water grid is at 97%, and this figure has remained stable now for about 24 hours. Rainfall has significantly eased over the catchment areas of our major dams such as Wivenhoe, Somerset and North Pine, and if we look at somewhere like Wivenhoe, its rate currently is at 182.9% as at 8 o'clock this morning, and that started to come off from its peak of about 185% earlier in the morning. As we've discussed at previous briefings, the releases from Wivenhoe will continue for a period, and I will ask Seqwater to come and talk to that shortly. And it is a sign, as we've discussed, that Wivenhoe Dam has been performing as it was designed to do. Somerset Dam stands at 147.1% and North Pine stands at 68.8% currently. As we previously discussed as well, as a result of the rainfall, currently 20 ungated dams are spilling, but all of them are performing in line with expectations. The other thing that's been talked about in terms of drinking water, and as the Premier has mentioned this morning, there is some good news on the front of the Mount Crosby water treatment plant. Both the left bank and the right bank of the water treatment plant are currently operational. They're operating below full capacity, and so the messages we've been giving over the last couple of days asking households to conserve water, we would ask for this period to that conservation message to still be kept in mind, and thank you very much to households who have been heeding that message. I would also say about Mount Crosby a very special thanks to the crews that have been working out there literally day and night to have both of the left and the east and the west bank of the water treatment plant operational as we continue to cope with high turbidity in the water that is coming through there. And this will be a feature for some days yet to come. So thank you to those crews out there, thank you to the water retailers, thank you to the councils who have been working with us on those topics. I also think in the water treatment plant space we have heard good news this morning in terms of the Gympie water treatment plant and the immediate future of getting water back online there. Thank you, Premier. I'll stand there.
Thank you, Graham. Thanks, Premier. Good morning, everyone. Look, I'm just going to talk briefly about a couple of subjects in a little bit more detail. We'll talk a little bit about Wivenhoe Dam. As Graham said, look, the dam has continued to perform as exactly how it was designed to perform. As of last night, we actually saw inflows into Wivenhoe Dam effectively peak. And to give you an idea of a context of the size of the event, as the Premier's been saying, this is an extraordinary event, an extraordinary amount of rainfall that's fallen. Combination of Somerset and Wivenhoe Dam has effectively held back about 2.2 million megalitres of water compared to what we've actually released to date, which is about 150,000. That's just to really demonstrate that that's the dam doing what it's supposed to do. Reduce those natural flows. If Wivenhoe Dam wasn't here, certainly the flooding, which unfortunately we're experiencing in Brisbane, certainly would have been worse without the dam. So where are we at in terms of our operation? As I said, those inflows peaked last night. We're now in a position where we can start to consider technically we call it our drain down or drawdown period, where we're effectively look to start emptying that flood compartment. We're able to use most of that flood compartment. We have the luxury, I think I spoke about it a little bit yesterday, about the luxury of having a really large compartment to use. So over the next week, we'll be certainly looking to reduce and in fact empty that flood compartment and bring Wivenhoe Dam back to its full supply capacity. Certainly the flows we'll be talking about over the next week will certainly not impact flooding, and so well below those sort of impact levels as we move that water out. In terms of water supply, excellent news overnight. As the Premier said, we've managed to increase production through those plants. So at the moment we're producing about 200 megalitres of water, and to give you an idea, we normally can produce about sort of 350. So slowly but surely we'll bring those plants back up. So we certainly continue to encourage South East Queenslanders to conserve water. An interesting stat one of my guys gave me this morning. So since we had that conversation yesterday afternoon and started to ask people to conserve water, we've actually seen a 20% drop off on consumption. So greatly appreciated. We'd love South East Queenslanders to continue to maintain that use over the next few days as we get production up and rolling again at Mount Crosby.
There you are, ladies and gentlemen, the latest in the flood situation right here in Brisbane. As we know, the good news is that the Mount Crosby Dam there, with its usefulness, we will have the proper drinking water supply here in Brisbane. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all for the flood coverage at this point in time. As you can see, that it is sort of slowly subsiding, slowly but surely, but we'll keep an eye out till about 8 tonight, when it's again peaking at that time. But looking at the weather now, because it stopped raining last night and hasn't rained all night and today, so that is good news, because that will help ease the inflow of water. So right now it's time to go to our daily India report, and let's get into that news and see what's happening in India.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you glimpses of the changing India. In our first story on the war in Ukraine, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said his government's topmost priority was the safety and security of Indian nationals, including students in Ukraine. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi told the Cabinet Committee on Security meeting on the Ukraine crisis that the topmost priority of his government is the safety and security of Indian nationals. Amid the ongoing Russian military operations in Ukraine, the Prime Minister on February 24th chaired the CCS meeting in New Delhi, attended by Union Home Minister Amit Shah, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal, Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas Hardeep Singh Puri, among others. India is carrying out a detailed assessment of its security interests before taking a considered stand on the Russia-Ukraine crisis. India is a close ally of opposing sides, Russia and US, both militarily and diplomatically. India has called for a peaceful resolution of the situation. Russia started operations after Moscow recognized Ukraine's breakaway regions, Donetsk and Luhansk, as independent entities. To help stranded Indian nationals, the Indian Ministry of External Affairs rushed its teams from embassies in countries bordering Ukraine to the Eastern European nation, which closed its airspace after Russia earlier announced the launch of a military offensive against it. MEA teams were sent to the land borders with Ukraine in Hungary, Poland, Slovak Republic and Romania. From Hungary, the team is on its way to the Zohany border post opposite Uzhhorod in Zakarpattia Oblast, while from Poland, a team is on its way to the Krakowiak land border. From Slovakia, the team is on its way to the Wine-Nemec land border, and from Romania to the Suceava land border. In a phone conversation, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi appeals to Russian President Vladimir Putin to end violence and war. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on February 24th night dialed Russian President Vladimir Putin amid the escalating tensions between Russia and Ukraine. The Prime Minister reiterated his long-standing conviction that the differences between Russia and the NATO group can only be resolved through honest and sincere dialogue. President Putin briefed Prime Minister Modi about the recent developments regarding Ukraine. Thus, the Indian Prime Minister became the first global leader to speak to the Russian President following the launch of Russian special military operations in Ukraine. Prime Minister Modi appealed for an immediate cessation of violence and called for concerted efforts from all sides to return to the path of diplomatic negotiations and dialogue. The Indian Prime Minister also sensitized the Russian President about India's concerns regarding the safety of the Indian citizens in Ukraine, especially students, and conveyed that India attaches the highest priority to their safe exit and return to India. The leaders agreed that their officials and diplomatic teams would continue to maintain regular contacts on issues of topical interest. The Government of India released a statement that Indian passengers from Ukraine can return through Qatar. The Government of India said Indian passengers from Ukraine can return via Qatar, with aviation industry experts stating that civilian flights will restart from Ukraine only when its airspace opens. Presently, 20,000 Indians, mostly students, are stranded in Ukraine. Since the Ukrainian airspace is closed due to the Russian military offensive, it is not clear how they are to travel from Ukraine to Qatar to take Qatar-India flights which are operating normally. The authorities of the Eastern European country issued a notum on 24th February morning stating that civilian flights within Ukraine are restricted due to potential hazards for civil aviation. The Indian Embassy in Qatar said on Twitter, the Government of India, Ministry of Civil Aviation has allowed passengers travelling from Ukraine to travel by transit under India-Qatar bilateral air bubble arrangement. This means that the passengers coming from Ukraine to Qatar will be able to board flights operating between Qatar and India. Aircraft manufacturer Boeing has delivered the 12th P-8I long-range maritime patrol aircraft to the Indian Navy. This completes the follow-on clause for 4 additional P-8I aircraft contracted in 2016. Aircraft manufacturer Boeing has delivered the 12th P-8I maritime patrol aircraft to the Indian Navy. This is the 4th of 4 additional aircraft delivered under the options contract signed by the Ministry of Defence in 2016, Boeing said. The P-8I aircraft is a variant of the P-8A Poseidon aircraft that Boeing developed as a replacement for the US Navy's aging P-3 fleet. In May 2021, the US State Department approved the proposed sale of 6 P-8I patrol aircraft and related equipment, a deal estimated to cost $2.42 billion US. In November 2019, the Defence Acquisition Council, chaired by Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, approved the procurement of the long-range maritime surveillance aircraft manufactured by Boeing. Indian Navy became the first international customer for the P-8 aircraft following the nearly $2.1 billion contract on January 1, 2009 for a total of 8 aircraft. The first aircraft arrived in India on May 15, 2013. The Ministry of Defence informed that the P-8I aircraft is equipped for long-range anti-submarine warfare, anti-surface warfare, intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance in support of the broad area, maritime and littoral operations. Its communication and sensor suite includes indigenous equipment developed by defence PSUs and private manufacturers. With its high speed and high endurance of about 10 hours, the aircraft is capable of thrusting a punitive response and maintaining a watch over India's immediate and extended areas of interest. The UAE ambassador to India has announced that the proposed comprehensive economic partnership agreement between India and the UAE will come into effect in 1 month. The proposed comprehensive economic partnership agreement between India and UAE will come into effect in 1 month, an envoy of the Emirates said on February 24th. Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the UAE Embassy in India, Ahmed Abdul Rahman Albana, said at a session organized by Merchant Chamber of Commerce in Kolkata city of India that the bilateral trade between the two countries, valued at $185 million in 1980, had grown to $45 billion in 2021. The CEPA between the two countries will come into effect in the next month, Albana said, and invited Indian companies to his country to invest in areas of manufacturing, defense, food processing and healthcare. He said the UAE government provides golden visas, green visas and entrepreneur visas to foreign citizens to live, work and study in the country. Albana also identified leather, IT, artificial intelligence as the sectors in which the UAE and Indian state of West Bengal can work together. FDI allows infra setup for foreign companies in space. India's new foreign direct investment policy for the space sector could allow overseas companies to set up their own infrastructure in line with the government guidelines. N. Sudhir Kumar, Director, Capacity Building Program Office on Space Opportunities, ISRO, said government policies will welcome such kind of implementation. He was speaking at the India-Singapore Technology Summit organized by the Department of Science and Technology and Confederation of Indian Industry. He said different policies for the space sector were at consultation stage that include use of remote sensing data, space communication, human space policy, industry and technology transfer. Kumar also said that the space transportation policy would also allow the industry to have its own launchers, launch pads, launching systems as well as satellites. He said the industry, including overseas companies, can get in touch with InSpace, the single window agency, to facilitate industry participation in the space sector. ISRO had launched Singapore's first indigenously built microsatellite in 2011 and 8 more during 2014-15. Bollywood producers of Akshay Kumar's Bachchan Pandey dropped the first song, Maar Khayega, recently. The song features Akshay in a scary avatar that has not been seen before. Pankaj Tripathi, Sanjay Mishra, Abhimanyu Singh and Jacqueline Fernandez. The song starts with Akshay's entry as he sits on a car's bonnet with the people cheering him. In another part of the song, Akshay is seen beating up his enemies by smashing their heads and fighting alone with a group of baddies. The song takes audiences through the heartland of India with larger-than-life visuals as Akshay is seen in a menacing avatar. The song is composed and designed by Vikram Montrose with vocals by Farhad Bhiwandiwala and Vikram Montrose and lyrics by Farhad Bhiwandiwala, Azim Dayani and Vikram Montrose. Maar Khayega song has been shot on a mega canvas describing Bachchan Pandey's persona. The song is choreographed by Ganesh Acharya. The film is helmed by Farhad Samji and produced by Sajid Nadiawala. It will get a Holi release on March 18. Bulletin of Daily India Report.
Such a dangerous environment where we've got floodwaters. People should not go into floodwaters. They should not go into floodwaters. They should wait till the floodwaters recede before they go into it, irrespective of whether it's home or not. It's been disappointing, and we're seeing imagery all the time, thank you, media, publishing it, of people in boats, on surfboards, on kayaks, going into floodwaters because they think it's a bit of a lark. It is not a lark. Let the authorities do what they've got to do the assessments and keep yourself safe and stay out of floodwaters.
at this stage it sounds like this water is going to linger for longer than last time. So are people going to be living in these conditions?
I don't think it's lingering. I think what you're going to see is peaks and troughs. The water will come up with the high tide and it will go down. That will depend on how much overall water is in the system. We will update you constantly around what's happening. It's real time when they know what's going to happen. We have to wait to see what's going to happen before we can give the correct advice. So we'll continue to do that.
Alerts. We're hearing a lot of feedback from residents saying by the time they got the emergency alert, it was simply too late. Their houses were already flooded.
Yeah, look, as I said, it's part of a range of things that need to happen in terms of advice to our community. So there's advice through mainstream media, there's advice through social media, there's advice through emergency alerts. They are the most technically challenging part that we have to do, particularly in a big area like Brisbane. It's somewhat more simpler in low populations areas. When we get to somewhere like Brisbane to do an emergency alert, to get it right, to target the area it has to happen, we have to be very precise, because otherwise it overwhelms the system, and in fact the system went out this morning. There was too much pressure on the system because of what was happening in southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales, and it went offline at 6:25 and it came back on about an hour later because of the volume.
Does that mean that some people did not get alerts?
No, everyone would have got alerts. What I'm saying is it's part of a series of communications that people get to tell them what's aware. Do not rely on one source of information. Not everyone even has a mobile phone, of course. We've got the whole population here. That's why it comes in through multiple avenues. And those people that live in those flood-prone areas actually have an obligation to understand what might happen in their areas.
But for a lot of people, despair has now turned to anger. Premier, Saturday afternoon, you dismissed it. You were so dismissive when people were saying this is a concern. And you said
no, that's not true. That's not true. Look, we have always said that this is an extreme weather event. In Parliament we were talking about that. However, the Bureau predictions were rapidly changing because we were under the Bureau. You can talk to the Bureau. They said that they thought conditions were easing. In fact, that system stayed over the southeast. Now, I think it's worthwhile for people to actually hear from the Bureau about the levels of rainfall we got in the last 24 hours, just to give you a snapshot of the unpredictable nature of this weather system. Now, I've been through Cyclone Debbie, ex-tropical cyclone Oswald. I was actually in Townsville. We actually flew in through monsoonal conditions into Townsville. And if everyone can remember what happened in Townsville, it actually sat over the city and over the dam, but it was a longer period of time. What happened here was that everyone expected the conditions to ease, but they didn't, and this rain bomb stayed over the entire southeast, and it had a big impact on the catchments and the streams and everything that went into the southeast of our state. Now, that is unpredictable. No one, not even the Bureau, saw that coming. So what's happened is it has been a huge response effort. Usually we're dealing with issues dealing with one council or a couple of councils. This has been all of the councils in South East having to deal with this issue at the same time. It has been fast and it has been furious and it has had a big impact. That is the facts. Now, in terms of the rainfall, I might just get Diana to come back, because a snapshot, we've been seeing these maps at these briefings. They are a sea of red, which means high extreme rainfall. Now, I don't know about everyone else, but last night it was like cyclonic conditions outside. The winds, the rain. Now, that is, and we had 2 systems of thunderstorms merging last night as well, and during the course of the day. We didn't know that was going to happen. This is Mother Nature. I can't control Mother Nature. The people of this state can't control Mother Nature. And sometimes they throw stuff at us and we've got to deal with it. And all of these emergency services people have been on the front line doing the best they possibly can. And if it wasn't for them, there would have been a lot more loss of life. So we should be thanking them from the bottom of our hearts for everything they've been doing. But I really do want people to understand how much rainfall has come into these catchments and across the entire southeast. So, Diana, if you could just explain that.
Aside, what do you say to Queenslanders who are angry that they've been flooded again, saying there was 10 years to plan for another event like this?
Look, I think it's tough on everybody. It is absolutely tough. It's heartbreaking. I go into people's homes and see it. It is absolutely heartbreaking, but it is Mother Nature.
What about the dam controls? Do you think the dam manuals need to be changed to allow for controlled releases based on forecasts?
They were updated after the Commission of Inquiry. There was a commission of inquiry that went through all of that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow the dam people to stay behind and give the media a thorough briefing about this. But please, let's hear from the Bureau, because they've never seen this before. And if they've never seen it before, you can't expect the officials to have seen it before either. Diana? Thank you.
Some of the rain.
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. As we know, the Premier's been grilled over that questions, and she's trying to, get that message out there that this is Mother Nature. Predictions are predictions, and sometimes, you cannot get quite an accurate one, but in today's day and age is what the journalists are saying, that in today's day and age you should have been able to predict this much earlier, so that damage could have been controlled. So ladies and gentlemen, that's about all in this segment. And thank you so much for everyone for joining in. I think there was a slight interruption in between the two streams. Apologies for that. But we will keep up to date, and we'll try and bring you all the footage. See, this feed, which is coming from the Premier's office, had a slightly crackling sound, so we chose another feed, and probably that was where the problem was. But we went back to the Premier's feed itself. So ladies and gentlemen, this has been a live coverage of Australian Indian Radio and Brisbane Indian Times. Wherever you are, even though the sun is out, it's bright and sunny, if you look out one side of the window, you would never believe what's happening. But if you can see from my back, look at the river that is still flooded. And as you can see, the water's flowing slowly, which means the water coming from the upstream going towards the sea is going at a slower rate because of the force of that incoming tide, which is now turning into an outgoing tide. So with the outgoing tide, the flow would be much faster until then, when it sort of comes to a standstill and starts coming back in and peaking back at about 8 p.m. tonight. So ladies and gentlemen, it's been wonderful having your company this morning on the 28th day of February 2022, which means the last day of February. Hey, another month gone. We are into, coming on to March, and let's get marching on. Let's see what else we have in store for us, the pandemic, the floods. So there's always something that we need to deal. See, these things will always happen. How we react to the situation, how we deal with this situation is what's going to make us. It's been wonderful having your company this morning. Until the next show, it's goodbye from us.